Hello!
Hello and good evening and welcome to Fong's Kitchen.
And what are you going to be cooking tonight?
Tonight I'm going to be cooking pork and oyster sauce and noodles.
Were you reading that?
Not at all. Over here please. Now the first thing that we have to do is to soak the noodles. Because we don't actually boil them, we don't actually cook them. Just pour a little bit of hot water over them. Just let them soak for a while. So that's what we're going to do first. I've already boiled the kettle. I have the noodles prepared already.
Oh, you don't need to move them to the camera.
I have the noodles prepared already. I'm simply going to pour...
And what kind of noodles are they?
These are thread, I believe.
Rice noodles.
Rice thread noodles. If you let me finish, Mr. Narrator.
Right, what's this shitty music?
This is traditional Chinese erhu music, which I thought would go very well with the experience.
Turn it down because it's a load of old tut.
This is my culture. So we're going to, as you can see, we're going to boil. Well, not going to boil, we're going to pour boiling water over the noodles.
Does it matter that half of them are sticking out?
Not at all, because it'll actually all soak in. But if you like, I'll see, and they're a bit too hot. There you go. It's okay. Want another bit of crunch. So, the next thing we have to do...
Are you reading this?
No, of course I'm not. It's all from memory. We need to heat a wok to the highest heat possible. And then when we do that, we're going to pop some groundnut oil on it.
Does it matter that the cooker's really dirty?
The cooker isn't very dirty, it's well used.
What are you doing?
I'm having a Keith Floyd moment. Right. Now we'll know when the wok is hot because the ring in the middle will go completely red. There'll be no pattern. Totally like that. And that's when we know when it's done.
Are you reading this?
Of course I'm not. Right. Next thing is the groundnut oil.
How much groundnut oil?
And the groundnut oil that we've got
Are you reading this?
is 1 tablespoon of groundnut oil.
And what is groundnut oil?
Groundnut oil is oil made out of ground nuts.
And
it is one of the healthiest oils that you can actually cook in. And it's also one of its key factors is that it has no taste, has no flavour at all. So it doesn't taint the ingredients, unlike olive oil and vegetable oils.
And could you use lard?
You couldn't use lard now.
Why?
Now what I'm going to do is, once it's really hot, you actually turn the heat down when it's slightly smoking.
That was smoking before.
It was indeed.
Just remind me what this shitty music is again?
Chinese erhu, traditional erhu music.
So, would it not be better to have Westlife?
Who?
And what's that?
This is minced pork, and we're going to pop this straight in now.
And could you use minced beef?
You could. Have you taken the thing for them? And one thing you've got to always remember, camera to me please, one thing you've always got to remember is always take the piece of paper underneath the pork off. Otherwise, you'll end up cooking the paper. And it's an absolute bugger to get off once you've got it.
So what are you doing here?
Here I am, basically stir frying it for 2 minutes. And also breaking up any clumps, because obviously minced pork, any mince is going to be in clumps. So what we're going to do is slowly break it up.
Why are you shouting?
Because the hissing is quite loud, and I'm not quite sure how well you'll be able to hear me. I noticed the music's gone as well.
Just turn down a bit.
Turn down so you can't actually hear it.
Yeah, because it's a load of old tut.
Right. So whilst that cooks a minute, a bit more clumps, I can just make sure that everything else. What I'm actually going to do now, even though this is only been for 2 minutes, I'm going to take the noodles out because it's such boiling water that. But I'm going to check first to make sure that this is correct. So I'll use that. You know, I'd say that a couple more minutes and they'll be ready. A couple more minutes.
So not now then.
And that's why you've got to test it, you've got to taste, you've got to test, you've got to check No point in making a decision like that, only to find that your noodles are going to be raw.
And would this be a suitable meal for a Jewish person?
I think Jewish or vegetarian, spot on. Spot on.
Are you reading this?
No, of course I'm not. Right. So once this is done for 2 minutes, which is about now, because you don't want it, because it still cooks for a long, long time. What we're going to do, what do you think?
Put in the rubbish in the bin?
Well, I can do that, I'm the chef. What we're going to do now...
Are you reading this?
I don't know how many times you've asked me that, but I'm not.
Why do you keep looking at the microwave?
I actually appreciate microwaves. I think it's a very beautiful microwave. We're now going to add the oyster sauce, the stock and the sugar and stir fry for a further 3 minutes. So here we have...
And this is your own recipe?
It is. It's, all out of here. All out of here. 6 tablespoons of oyster. Ooh. Probably a little bit more for good luck. So that goes in.
And what is oyster sauce?
Oyster sauce is sauce made out of oysters. We're also going to put sugar in, which is very controversial, and stock, which isn't so controversial.
And what sort of stock is that?
It is chicken stock.
And how do you make that?
You make that by stocking chickens. I'll never forget.
Are you going to scrape any of these things because you've left half?
I'm going to mix this first, just so that it coats everything, and then you are like the overbearing narrator from Jamie Oliver, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just thought that you'd left quite a lot of the oyster sauce behind.
Not really. And the thing is, I will be tasting it, so if we find that it is lacking in flavour, then I can always add to taste. And again, so this is stir fried for another further 3 minutes.
You don't actually seem to be keeping track of time very well.
Very much so. It's all in my head, all in here. I've been doing this recipe for years now. This has been passed down by generations.
Quite sweaty, aren't you?
I'm not sweaty at all, actually.
No.
I'm not. It's just
greasy head.
I put face cream, you know, makeup.
Greasy head.
So whilst that's doing it, I'm now definitely going to take the water out. I'm going to get a colander. I'm going to drain this. It's a very hot bowl. Very hot bowl. So we're going to keep the hot bowl because we want to keep the noodles hot, remember.
Does it matter that some of the noodles aren't cooked?
The noodles are cooked. The noodles are very much cooked by now. Because, I mean, it's boiling water. The actual original recipe that my grandfather's grandfather brought out was actually that you soaked it in cold water. And there's a picture of him there, actually. So whilst that reduces, but actually you do want a lot of liquid in this. It's deceptive because we're going to be putting the noodles in there. So now we've add the sesame seed oil and light soy sauce. We're just going to what I do is pour a half in now. I get my wooden spoon and give it a little bit of a toss like that.
So you'd say you're a tosser?
I would say that I am not a tosser man. But I give this food a nice little toss, like that. Get the light stuff on the top, and then coat the rest. So that basically you're not just putting it all in one dollop, and you get a good coating on the noodles. Now we can leave them to stand, whilst we get on with the rest of the recipe, which is cooking the pork.
Are you reading this?
No, I'm not reading this, no. Do we not have Shaoxing rice wine in this? No rice wine in this, but what I do say is, if you are going to get rice wine, make sure that you get Shaoxing rice wine.
Sorry, this is the BBC. You shouldn't be plugging.
Shaoxing rice wine.
Yeah, we'll edit that out after.
It's by far the best wine. Rice
Can
wine.
you use sherry instead?
You can use sherry instead, but it's not the same. And remember, this recipe...
Now, you know when earlier you said that you had to break up any clumps?
Yep. Actually, it's good to have a few clumps because it gives the dish texture.
Are you reading this?
No. So now we're going to add the ginger, spring onions, and the noodles. So there's your spring onions. I probably would have had some more.
That's all we have.
and the ginger, which has been freshly grated. And then I'm going to mix that in with that for a slight minute. And then I'm going a slight minute, and then I'm going to add the noodles. And in they go. The trick here is to move and fold. Now what I particularly don't like about this dish that I've done today is it's not as liquidy as it has been in the past.
Want some more stock?
And a little bit more stock would just give it that edge, because essentially this is all it is. There we go.
And that's fresh stock that you've made?
That is fresh stock. We have chickens out the back, which we put in a machine, turns them into stock. And the trick really is to get your thing right through the noodles and get the meat, which always is at the bottom, on the floor where possible. Let's not look at me hobbit feet.
So you're cooking shorts?
Shorts is essential. Last thing, very last minute, we're going to put some sesame seeds in, which is going to give it a nice nutty flavour, but we're only going to put those right at the end because they've already been toasted. And this is looking, I'm actually going to turn the heat off now because I don't think it needs any more heat, because a wok retains an awful lot of heat, as you know. And then we're going to put, make sure they're alright. We're going to put that half in first, give them a mix. Mixing things together is always difficult.
Is that why you tend to flick it all over the cooker?
I prefer meat when it's actually bounced off a deep fat fryer. I think it gives it a little bit more moisture, a bit more flavour. Now, it's odd that somebody very close to me like sesame seeds in Chinese food when they don't like nuts, because the flavour's very similar, I find.
Yeah, but
a sesame seed...
They probably think it's about the texture, not the flavour. They don't like the texture of a cashew nut or a peanut in food, probably.
What do they know? Westerners. This is done now. It's lovely.
Really?
Absolutely done. Done to perfection. And the thing is that somebody very dear to me also says that I do this the best. And the reason why I do it the best is...
Somebody may be refining their opinion.
Because it's moist, it's cooked, and it's done.
And it should look like that.
What? And as you can see, what you need to do is just get a good helping. There we go. In each bowl. And you need to do a little bit of refinement because, you know, some people will get more than others. Some people get more meat than others. So we're going to put all the meat on there. And then we're just going to just chop and change a little bit. Because that one's got more noodles. That one's got more meat.
I like more meat.
He likes more meat. I like more noodles. So actually we could keep it as it is and maybe put a little bit few more noodles on for you. But I prefer the noodles. I'm a pasta noodles man. Not a meat man. Pasta noodles. Name of the game. And there you go, folks. Beautifully prepared in under 10 minutes.
Shall I present it to the camera with you in your hand?
I'd say that you probably don't need the bits in the middle. And I might take a bit of your meat. But here we have pork and oyster sauce noodles. And bear in mind, if you get a good oyster sauce, the dish cooks itself. Done.